Okay, so today I want to talk about psychosis. And if you are unfamiliar with that term, I'm pretty sure the literal definition is abnormal state of mind or abnormal condition of mind. I've also heard people refer to it as being out of touch with reality. And I want to talk about psychosis for two reasons. For one, because I've been having a lot of symptoms with psychosis this week, so it's pretty heavy on my mind. For me, psychosis is kind of like rock bottom. It's about as bad as it gets. Um, and I also want to talk about it because people aren't talking about it. Because people are afraid to talk about it. When people hear terms like delusions or hallucinations or paranoia, they tend to think of straitjackets and padded rooms, and it's a terrifying experience, but it shouldn't be that terrifying for other people. I think they have this misconception that all the voices in your head are telling you to kill everybody, and that's not always the case. There's all different forms of psychosis. For me, I have paranoia. Most of the time, my paranoia will start from a social anxiety when I'm in a social setting, like maybe I'm at Walmart or I'm at a birthday party or a baby shower, and I can hear people thinking bad things about me. Now, of course, everybody's had some self-esteem issues at some point in their life, and you might be afraid that people will think or say bad things about you, but when you hear other people, you think you hear people's thoughts. Um, Obviously, that's not reality, that's not rational. And then my paranoia uh, can also sometimes, when I'm not in a social setting and it's not social anxiety, if I'm just generally extremely nervous, like to the point where sounds make me nervous or sudden movements make me nervous. Um, Sometimes I get paranoid thoughts about people watching me or saying things about me or thinking things about me. Even if I'm at home alone, there have actually been times where I have locked myself in the smallest closet in the house trying to shut the rest of the world out so that the voices would go away. Also, I have paranoid thoughts about people trying to hurt me or wanting me to hurt myself. It's most commonly people wanting me to hurt myself, and that stems from the BPD mostly, and also a sense of guilt for being mentally ill. I feel like everybody would be better off without me, so in my mind I process people doing things and saying things to intentionally try to push me to that point. Um, Also, I have had, not as common for me, but I have had hallucinations, delusions where I think I see people who aren't there, or I think I've had conversations that haven't actually happened. And then also, most commonly, right behind paranoid thoughts, I have disassociation, and basically you feel like you're not real, or maybe the world around you isn't real. On the lowest level, it's just a feeling of numbness or emptiness where you just don't emotionally connect with anyone for some reason. And then it can stem from there into I've had disassociation where I have felt like I'm a ghost, maybe, like the world is just happening around me and I'm floating through it. Um, and it's not like just one of those passing thoughts where you feel lonely and empty. I mean, you literally think you could walk through a door or drive your van through a power pole. And then there's also disassociation where I felt like maybe my body is here and people can see me and I can react with other people, but some part of my self-conscious is um, in some other universe, and some hellacious torture universe where there's just screaming and horrible things. Um, and then also, I've had disassociation in a sense of basically what I call a delusion within a delusion. I will feel like my whole life, everything around me, everything in my past is all one huge delusion, and that I must be in some padded cell somewhere, doped up on some heavy medication, and I'm just waiting to come out of it and realize that my whole life is one big delusion. And also, I have thoughts sometimes, I guess you would call them delusions or hallucinations. I hear voices telling me to do some very irrational or harming things to myself. And those are things it's hard to talk about with people because you don't want to scare the crap out of them, and it's a scary thing, but it needs to be talked about. So there it is. And ways of preventing psychosis. Number one is keeping your stress levels low. Gain some really good coping skills for your stress. I mean, obviously life is stressful, things are going to happen that you can't control, but you can control how you react to them. There are ways to keep calm, even if you aren't on medication or you don't have medication available to you at the time. And then also sleep. I remember reading in the textbooks once that I think it's 3 nights in a row of 5 hours or less per night is enough sleep deprivation to cause symptoms of psychosis. So it's very important to sleep well. Sleep deprivation can actually cause psychosis symptoms in perfectly normal, healthy human beings. So you take a crazy person and you sleep deprive them, you're more crazy. And then sometimes those things just don't help and you end up there in that crazy place anyways. And there are certain things you can do to help cope. Certainly once you are into a certain place in psychosis where coping skills seem out of grasp, you don't have enough wits about you to reach for your coping skills, or you're struggling to use those coping skills and you just don't have enough strength left to. But when you are aware that these issues are unrealistic, then there are coping skills you can use, especially with disassociation. Sometimes if you feel like maybe the world around you isn't real, you can cause something to happen to let you know that you exist and the world around you exists, like break something. And I don't mean throw a glass plate at a wall, but snap a pencil, pull a flower up out of the ground, something small, just so that you feel the actual world, you feel something around you. Also, when you have those ghost-like feelings, it helps to bump into something or bump into someone. I've actually bumped into strangers before on purpose, just because I felt like I was a ghost and I was floating through and I was trying to bring myself down back to reality. And so I just bumped my shoulder into somebody, and I had decided if I bumped my shoulder and I just floated on through, well then, it wasn't a delusion. And if the person stumbled or I stumbled, then obviously I wasn't a ghost, because ghosts float. Then with paranoia, when you start having irrational thoughts involving other people, or really any sort of irrational thoughts, it can be helpful to talk to yourself. Yes, I'm telling you to talk to yourself. That can actually make you more sane and less crazy. As crazy as that sounds. Argue with yourself, bring up points about the world around you to kind of bring you back to reality. Bring up past events. Say if you think someone is trying to harm you, you can recall things they did the day before that, or a month before that, or a year before that, just to put yourself in rational memories. And sometimes, that sounds kind of peaceful, but sometimes it's a lot less peaceful than that. Sometimes it's like war in your head, but you have to do it to keep grounded. Sometimes I think to myself, God, it would just be so much easier to just stay in that place and just let it take over, because fighting it is exhausting. But that's what we do. We cope every day, all day long. But that's my topic for today, and if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. And until tomorrow, take your